My name is Lena Whitmore. I am 33 years old, and the night my mother tried to make me look unwanted in front of 300 people, she had no idea my husband was already inside the building. I arrived alone at her exclusive charity gala because that was exactly what we had planned. The moment she saw the empty space beside me, she lifted her champagne glass and announced, "Look who finally came." She couldn't even find someone willing to accompany her. The people nearest her laughed first. The rest followed because wealthy rooms often confuse cruelty with permission. Then she motioned to the event staff. "Move her place card to the back. We can't have an empty seat ruining the family table." The coordinator hesitated, but my mother was the gala chair. Within seconds, my name disappeared from table 1 and reappeared at table 28 beside the service doors. My sister covered a smile with her napkin. My brother raised his glass as if my humiliation deserved a toast. I could feel every eye waiting for me to break. Instead, I picked up my place card, looked directly at my mother and said, "Remember this moment." She laughed again. "Oh, Lena, must everything be dramatic?" I sat at the back and watched the clock. 20 minutes later, the host stepped onto the stage holding a newly revised card. My mother straightened, ready to welcome the donor whose money she believed would secure her social legacy. "Ladies and gentlemen," the host said, "please welcome our $50 million benefactor and his wife." The ballroom doors opened. My mother smiled at the man entering until he walked past her, crossed the entire room, and stopped at my chair. Before I tell you what he said, and how one quiet decision dismantled my mother's perfect world, tell me, what time is it where you are, and where are you watching from? I want to see how far Lena's story travels tonight. My mother, Victoria Whitmore, had built her life around being seen. In Manhattan society pages, she was described as elegant, tireless, and devoted to public service. At home, devotion had always been more selective. My younger sister Clara had inherited Victoria's beauty, her ease in crowded rooms, and her instinct for turning attention into currency. My younger brother, Ethan, had inherited the family name in the way that mattered to my mother. He used it loudly. I had inherited the uncomfortable habit of noticing what did not add up. That habit became my career. I was a partner at Northline Advisory, a governance firm hired when money, power, and reputation became dangerously tangled. Victoria called it paperwork for nervous executives. She never asked why clients flew me across the country or why I stopped discussing work after she turned one confidential case into dinner gossip. To her, Clara was creative, Ethan was ambitious, and I was difficult because I read the fine print. The Horizon Literacy Foundation, Victoria's signature charity, was celebrating its 20th anniversary at the Halston Grand. The invitation listed Victoria as founding chair, Clara as creative ambassador, and Ethan as strategic advisor. My name appeared nowhere, though I had reviewed the foundation's governance documents the previous year. I found weak conflict disclosures, vague vendor contracts, and too much authority concentrated in Victoria's office. My corrective memo earned one reply: "Please stop turning my life's work into one of your dreary audits." I still planned to attend. Not for approval. That addiction had taken years to break. I was going because the foundation's stated mission, adult literacy, job readiness, and second chance education, mattered to me. It also mattered to Julian Cross. Julian was my husband of 3 years and founder of Cross Meridian, a cloud infrastructure company that had made him a billionaire before 40. Public profiles called him ruthless and unreadable. They did not know he cooked when anxious or spent a Sunday repairing my grandmother's bookshelf. We met at a governance conference after I challenged his argument about charitable oversight. He invited me to coffee. 18 months later, we married in a civil ceremony with 6 witnesses. We kept the marriage private because his visibility attracted intrusion, and my work required discretion. Privacy was also my request. I knew Victoria would turn our marriage into a billboard, Clara into networking, and Ethan into an investment pitch. 4 months before the gala, Julian's family office began evaluating a major education gift. I recommended Horizon's mission but not its governance. His foundation proposed a $50 million restricted commitment for adult learning centers, conditional on independent oversight, audited spending, competitive contracts, and a restructured board. Victoria knew an anonymous donor was considering a gift. She did not know it was Julian, or that her daughter was insisting on safeguards. The announcement was originally supposed to name only the Cross Meridian Foundation. Then Victoria called 3 days before the gala. "Come alone. The family table is crowded, and I don't want one of your temporary relationships distracting from Clara." Julian heard her. "We can stay home," he said afterward. "I refuse to punish the mission for her cruelty." "Then we attend on your terms," he said. 48 hours before the gala, his family office sent the event director a sealed protocol packet containing his arrival details, the exact introduction, and a private wedding photograph so the host could identify me. The instruction was explicit: announce Julian Cross and his wife, only after receiving my consent that evening. That was why I arrived alone. Julian was upstairs while the independent directors signed the governance addendum protecting the donation from Victoria's control. Victoria barely noticed my navy dress or the wedding band I wore on my right hand in public. She saw only the empty space beside me and an opportunity. "Lena," she said loudly enough for the nearest tables to hear. "Still insisting you prefer your own company?" Clara turned from a photographer. Maybe her date discovered conversation was required. Ethan laughed into his drink. Donors, board members, and acquaintances joined them because laughing with Victoria was safer than disappointing her. Victoria called over the seating coordinator, Marisol, and tapped my place card. "We have a late addition at the family table. Put Lena at 28. Marisol glanced at the chart. "Mrs. Whitmore, table 28 is beside the catering entrance." "Perfect. Lena appreciates independence." That was how she did it, converting rejection into a favor and humiliation into evidence of my personality. As Marisol lifted my card, Victoria turned to Malcolm Price, a major sponsor. "My eldest has always been too independent," she said with a sympathetic laugh. "Eventually, you stop trying to rescue people who prefer being alone." She was not merely mocking me, she was selling a story about me. For 1 second, I was 16 again, standing beside an unopened debate trophy, while Victoria redirected everyone toward Clara's recital photographs. Then I felt the smooth edge of my wedding band beneath my thumb. The memory vanished. "Remember this moment," I told her. Victoria dismissed me with a smile and returned to her admirers. I followed Marisol to the back table without lowering my head. I had spent years believing silence made me weak. That night, silence was simply the final courtesy I offered before the truth arrived. Table 28 sat between the kitchen doors and a column blocking half the stage. Its guests had merely been ranked unimportant by Victoria's social map. A retired librarian, 2 program directors, a longtime volunteer, and an instructor whose name Victoria had mispronounced. They made room without asking why I had been sent there. Their kindness exposed how fully I had expected strangers to follow my mother's example. The retired librarian introduced herself as June and nodded toward the family table. "You handled that with more grace than the people who caused it." "Practice," I said. On stage, Victoria pressed one hand to her chest and spoke about dignity. She described adults ashamed they could not read a job application. Her voice trembled at the right places. When the camera moved close, a tear appeared on cue. "No person should ever be made to feel invisible," she declared. The room applauded. I stared at the woman who had moved her daughter behind a column. Her cruelty was rarely uncontrolled. It was polished and delivered with enough charm that objecting made me look unstable. As a child, I pressed my thumbnail into my wrist whenever she erased me publicly. I found myself doing it again. I stopped. Have you ever had to smile while the person who gave you life turned you into a joke before hundreds of watching eyes? My phone vibrated beneath the table. A message from Julian appeared. The addendum is signed. The board accepted every safeguard. I can leave privately, or we can proceed. Your choice. Above it was the photograph sent to the event director. Us outside City Hall, laughing as the wind nearly stole our marriage certificate. No Aspen ceremony or magazine photographer, just 6 witnesses, 2 rings, and a promise never used as leverage. I typed, proceed. Then I added, walk to the back table first. His reply came immediately, always. That word steadied me. I had refused Julian's earlier offers to confront my family. I did not want another powerful person authoring my identity. The reveal was my decision, and the donation conditions came from my analysis. Julian was not rescuing me. He was standing beside a woman who had stopped rescuing those who hurt her. The event director received a cream envelope, read the card, and discreetly compared me with the private photograph. Our eyes met. I nodded. The clock read 7:34. Victoria accepted praise before the announcement, telling Malcolm her personal cultivation strategy had secured the donor. Clara posed beside the foundation logo. Ethan handed out business cards and called Horizon our family platform. At 7:37, the host approached the microphone. Victoria took her place beside the stage, shoulders lifted, chin angled toward the cameras. The host began by thanking the board and regional directors. Then she paused. We have one final announcement. A screen illuminated with the Cross Meridian Foundation emblem. Chairs shifted. Phones rose. Someone whispered, "That is serious money." Victoria's face transformed into triumph. Ethan straightened his jacket. Clara moved toward the aisle. The host lifted the revised card. Our benefactor requested that tonight's introduction reflect not only his commitment, but the person whose judgment brought him to this mission. Victoria smiled more broadly, apparently assuming the sentence referred to her. Please welcome the founder of Cross Meridian and the principal donor behind a $50 million commitment to adult literacy, Mr. Julian Cross, and his wife. The front doors opened. For 3 full seconds, Victoria looked radiant. Then Julian entered, ignored the stage, and began walking toward the back of the ballroom. Julian crossed the ballroom with composed certainty. His security director stayed near the doors while independent counsel followed with the signed donation documents. Guests recognized him almost at once. Murmurs and raised phones followed him from table to table. Victoria stepped into the aisle to greet him. "Mr. Cross," she said, extending both hands. "What an extraordinary honor. I'm Victoria Whitmore, the woman behind Horizon." Julian stopped just long enough to offer a formal nod. "I know who you are." Her smile tightened as she looked behind him for the wife. Clara positioned herself near the photographer. Ethan stood beside Malcolm, waiting to enter the historic photograph. Julian moved around Victoria. The room quieted as his destination became clear. He passed table 1, ignored Clara and Ethan, and continued to the service doors until he reached table 28. I stood. His face softened. "Hello, Lena." "Hello, Julian." He turned my wedding band to its proper position and kissed my forehead. The intimate gesture felt louder than applause. Clara's jaw dropped. Her fork struck her plate and fell. Ethan lowered his glass. Victoria remained in the aisle, hand extended, color draining from her face. Julian looked at my place card, then at the catering doors swinging behind me. "They seated my wife here?" June answered before I could. Her mother did. A nervous sound crossed the room as people realized they had chosen the wrong side of a public cruelty. Victoria recovered enough to approach us. "Lena, surely you're going to explain this." I faced her. "Explain my marriage, or explain why your largest donor had to cross the room to find your daughter beside the kitchen." The question was not for the audience. it was for her, and she had no answer. "This is absurd," Clara said as she hurried toward us. "You cannot secretly marry Julian Cross and reveal it at Mother's Gala like some stunt." "I did not arrange your comments at the entrance," I said. "I did not move my seat. I did not ask anyone to laugh. But you knew he was the donor." "Yes." The answer shocked them more than denial. Ethan pushed toward us. "Why would Cross Meridian give $50 million to a foundation without telling its strategic advisor?" Counsel opened her folder. "Because the agreement was negotiated with an independent board committee, Mr. Whitmore. You were excluded due to a potential conflict." Ethan understood the warning. Victoria looked toward the host. "We should continue this privately. Mr. Cross, the stage is waiting. We have prepared photographs and a presentation about the Whitmore family's legacy." Julian's hand rested lightly at the center of my back. "The donation is not a tribute to the Whitmore family." The cameras near the stage continued recording. Victoria noticed and lowered her voice. "Of course, it is about the mission. That is what I meant." "Then Lena should be on stage," Julian said. "The foundation would not have received this commitment without her." My mother stared at me as if the woman beside Julian had stolen my face. For years, she had explained me to rooms before I could speak. Now she could not control a single sentence. The host invited us forward. Julian gestured for me to walk first. The path back to the stage felt longer than his walk toward me. I passed people who had laughed 20 minutes earlier. Several looked down. One woman mouthed, "I'm sorry." Malcolm Price moved away from Victoria, creating a visible space between them. On stage, the host asked Julian to say a few words. He took the microphone. "Cross Meridian's foundation invests where a strong mission is matched by strong accountability," he began. "Horizon's educators do exceptional work. Its regional teams have changed thousands of adult lives. We are committing $50 million over 10 years to expand that work." Applause rose, but he waited until it ended. "This gift is governed by an agreement signed tonight. Funds are restricted to programs, contracts will be competitively reviewed, audits made public, and no donor, founder, advisor, or family member will control the money." Ethan went still. Victoria realized the gift would save the foundation but would never belong to her. Julian continued. "The person who insisted on those protections was my wife, Lena Whitmore Cross. She believed the mission deserved support even when its leadership dismissed her counsel. She separated the value of the work from the way she had been treated. That is integrity." Applause began at table 28. June stood first, then the program directors, then much of the ballroom. I felt exposed, not triumphant. The same room now applauded because a billionaire had spoken my name. Its approval changed too quickly to trust. Julian offered me the microphone. I looked at Victoria. She gave me a warning stare I had known since childhood. "Do not embarrass this family." I turned toward the audience. "I reviewed Horizon because I believe in its teachers," I said. "The people at the back tables, evening classrooms, and regional offices are why this organization deserves a future. This gift belongs to their work, not my marriage, surname, or anyone's social legacy." Victoria stepped closer to the stage, but the independent counsel quietly blocked the stairs. Dignity cannot be a word used only in fundraising videos. It must govern how an institution treats people when kindness brings no advantage. The new agreement makes that measurable. No accusation, no raised voice. I did not need either. Everyone in the ballroom understood. After I returned the microphone, Victoria pushed past counsel and came up the side stairs. "A beautiful surprise," she said too brightly. "My daughter is private. I naturally gave the couple space while cultivating this partnership behind the scenes." With one effortless lie, she transformed ignorance into discretion and my work into her strategy. I stepped back toward the microphone. "You learned my husband's name 30 seconds ago." The room froze. Victoria's smile remained on her face, but nothing behind it moved. "Lena," she whispered, "and 9 months ago, you rejected the governance plan you have just praised." I kept the email. Malcolm walked away from the stage and began speaking urgently with another board member. For the first time that evening, Victoria had no usable version of events. The host called an intermission, but no one moved. The ballroom had become a courtroom without a judge. Victoria pulled me behind the stage curtain. Clara and Ethan followed. Julian stayed close enough to help, but far enough to let me speak. "You planned this," Victoria said. Her voice was low and shaking. "You came here determined to humiliate me. You announced that no one wanted me. You moved me to the back. You lied about arranging a donation you knew nothing about. Which part did I plan?" Clara folded her arms. "You could have warned us. You could have asked about my life." "We are your family," Ethan snapped. "Keeping your marriage secret affected our interests." There it was. Not my happiness or 3 missing years. Their interests. "My marriage is not a family asset," I said. "Neither is the donation." Victoria looked past me toward Julian. Her tone changed instantly. "Mr. Cross, I apologize for this misunderstanding. Lena and I have always had a complicated relationship, but families tease. Surely you understand how daughters can be sensitive." Julian met her eyes. "I once believed my wife's family would be the place where she was most valued. Tonight, I learned I was wrong." He spoke loudly enough for the first row to hear. The sentence traveled outward in whispers. Victoria opened her mouth. No sound came. 1 second, 2, 3, 4, 5. The silence stripped away every title she used as armor. She was a mother standing beneath her slogan about dignity after declaring her daughter unwanted. Clara tried to recover control. "This is still Mother's event. We should finish the program and discuss private grievances tomorrow." "The humiliation was public," I said. "The truth can remain public too." Ethan turned to Julian. "There are commercial opportunities between Cross Meridian and my firm. We should—" "No," Julian said. It was the night's shortest answer, and the one Ethan felt most deeply. Victoria gripped my forearm. "Do not walk away from me while people are watching." I removed her hand. "People watching was the point when you mocked me." Her eyes filled. Those tears always came when consequences entered a room. "I made one bad joke. You made a decision, then another. The joke, the table, the story about rescuing me, the claim that you arranged this gift. One mistake can be repaired. A pattern must be confronted." Behind us, 2 members of the independent board asked Victoria to join them in a private conference room. She ignored them. "If you leave now, the press will assume this family is divided." It is divided. Think about Horizon. I did. That is why the money is protected from all of us. Fear became anger. You always resented me. Now you married money and think that makes you powerful. The old Lena would have listed achievements. Now I understood that defending myself accepted her right to hold the trial. "No," I said. "The power is knowing I no longer need you to understand me." I walked back onto the stage and asked for the microphone one final time. "Thank you to Horizon's educators, program directors, volunteers, and responsible board members," I told the room. "My husband and I will honor every cent of the commitment signed tonight. We will also honor every accountability provision. I will not discuss my family further at an event meant to serve adult learners. You wanted everyone here to see who I was. Now they have." Julian and I left through the main doors without hurrying. June squeezed my hand. Marisol whispered an apology. The guests who had laughed formed a corridor of lowered eyes. In the car, Julian waited until the hotel disappeared behind us before speaking. "Do you want the foundation to withdraw?" "No, the teachers did nothing wrong." "Do you want me to pressure the board to remove Victoria?" "No. Pressure would let her call herself my victim. The agreement requires an independent review. Let the facts choose. He reached for my hand. And what do you want for yourself? I looked at the ring now visible on my finger. Distance. And the right to stop making their comfort more important than my reality. My phone filled with messages from relatives who ignored my last 3 birthdays, reporters seeking comment, and guests offering self-protective apologies. I turned it face down. For once, I did not need to manage the reaction. The truth had entered the room. It could do its own work. By morning, a 43-second Gala video had 2 million views. It began with Victoria declaring that no one would attend with me and ended with Julian turning my wedding ring outward. Victoria's laugh, Clara's fallen fork, and the walk to table 28 told the story. Horizon's board met that morning. By noon, 3 sponsors had suspended support pending review. Malcolm left Victoria's host committee, saying charitable leadership required privately practicing the dignity it advertised publicly. The board placed Victoria on leave because the donation agreement required independent leadership during an ethics investigation. Victoria called me 14 times. Clara sent 1 message. Fix this before it destroys us. Ethan sent 3. The last read. You know how markets overreact. Tell Julian to clarify that the family is united. I responded once, to all 3 of them. The review is independent. I will not interfere. That answer enraged them because interference was the family language they understood best. 2 days later, Victoria called the incident family teasing edited without context on television and credited months of Whitmore relationship building for Julian's gift. She smiled until the host displayed my governance email. I had not leaked it. External counsel requested prior warnings, and the board released the memo with my permission after Victoria claimed she designed the safeguards. It identified undisclosed related party contracts, weak bidding, and image-driven spending. Her dreary audit's reply appeared beneath it. Her smile vanished on live television. The review took 6 weeks. I recused myself from family interviews and submitted documents only through counsel. Victoria called it a revenge campaign. The paper trail showed something worse. I did not have to direct anything. Investigators found Clara's agency had received a $180,000 contract without open bidding. Minutes called the vendor independent, concealing that its owner was Victoria's daughter. Clara billed luxury photography, styling, and travel tied to her profile. Ethan's entity received $96,000 for recycled reports and donor introductions. Victoria had approved both arrangements through a committee whose members believed the vendors were unrelated professionals. Victoria had also upgraded gala decor and hospitality beyond budget, classifying personal guest services as donor cultivation. Auditors rejected $412,000 in unsupported charges. The consequences were slower than a dramatic criminal case and more destructive to people who worship reputation. The board notified the State Charities Bureau, terminated Clara's and Ethan's contracts, demanded repayment, and filed public corrections. Victoria's attorneys negotiated reimbursement rather than contesting documents bearing her signature. To cover the repayment, legal fees, and gala overruns, she sold the Palm Beach apartment she had spent 10 years presenting as proof that the Whitmores belonged among old money families. The board voted unanimously to remove her. To avoid a formal removal dominating the news, Victoria could resign, surrender her office, and apologize without blaming editing, stress, humor, or me. She resigned. The damage did not stop with her. Clara's largest beauty client invoked a morals clause, and 2 smaller clients followed. Her agency lost its office. She posted about jealous women weaponizing success, but comments repeated 4 words. Table 28 remembers. Ethan's partners paused an acquisition after learning he omitted the Horizon payments from a conflict questionnaire. An investor withdrew, collapsing the deal. He was removed from client meetings, stripped of signing authority, and subjected to a 5-year disclosure review. He resigned and opened a smaller consultancy under his middle name. Victoria's social world disappeared by inches. Invitations were lost, lunches postponed, and 2 boards accepted resignations before she offered them. At a museum benefit, her empty neighboring seats were compared online with Table 28. Former allies told reporters they had always disapproved. Cruel crowds are loyal only while cruelty is profitable. Victoria threatened to sue me for defamation. Her counsel withdrew the draft after reviewing the recording, contracts, interview, and email. A lawsuit would have made every internal message public. For the first time in her life, Victoria could not buy, charm, threaten, or edit her way into a better version of the truth. Horizon survived. The restructured board added educators, a former learner, an auditor, and independent directors. Clara's branding budget became evening classes. Ethan's allocation funded transportation grants. Julian's first installment entered restricted, independently monitored accounts. I visited a new learning center without cameras. A program director from Table 28 showed me a classroom funded by the first release. Its wall read, "Dignity is what we practice when no one important is watching." I stood beneath it longer than I expected. The revenge was not that my family lost status. It was that everything they had treated as unimportant, the back tables, the overlooked staff, the boring controls, the daughter who read the fine print, became the foundation's source of survival. Their names came off the doors. The work continued without them. Victoria's written apology arrived 4 months after the gala. The first draft came through her publicist and referred to a painful misunderstanding. I returned it unread after the first sentence. The second blamed exhaustion. I returned that too. The third came in her own handwriting. She wrote that she had humiliated me because making me smaller had always helped her feel larger. She admitted that she noticed Clara and Ethan only when their success reflected well on her, and noticed me most when I threatened the family stories she preferred. She did not ask Julian to restore her position. She did not mention the apartment, the lost invitations, or the money. I agreed to one meeting under 3 conditions: a neutral location, no publicist, and no attempt to use our conversation to rebuild her image. She arrived without makeup for perhaps the first time I could remember. Halfway through her apology, she began to say that she had been under pressure. I raised my hand. No explanations disguised as accountability. She stopped. Then she began again. I did not forgive her that afternoon. Forgiveness offered under pressure is only another performance. I told her we could communicate by email for 6 months. No family galas, no photographs, no references to Julian in fundraising conversations. If she minimized the past or used my life as social currency, contact would end. Clara eventually sent a direct apology without mentioning her lost clients. Ethan repaid the disputed fees and stopped calling me vindictive. I accepted their words as information, not proof. Change would have to become a pattern before I trusted it. Julian and I made our marriage public on our own terms with one photograph from a quiet anniversary dinner. The caption contained no company valuation, no family name, and no explanation. It said simply, 3 years married, still choosing each other. I no longer sit at tables where belonging requires my silence. I no longer confuse being needed with being loved, and I no longer hide the brightest parts of my life to protect people committed to misunderstanding me. Victoria once pushed me to the back of a ballroom because she believed proximity to power determined human worth. What she never understood was that the back table taught me the final lesson I needed. Dignity does not come from where someone seats you. It comes from the moment you stand, claim your own name, and stop asking cruel people for permission to exist. If the person who pushed you to the bottom wanted to climb back up using your success, would you give them your hand, or let them learn to swim on their own?
Thank you for being part of this fictional journey with us. All situations in the story are created only for entertainment, education, and reflection. We hope it reminds you that some people only respect a boundary after they realize they can no longer cross it. By then, the most loving thing you can do for yourself may be to keep that boundary firmly in place.